Welcome to everyone. Today we will discuss about some basic parts of Fourier series. The study of a special type of series whose terms are trigonometric functions of variables was invented by Joseph Fourier in 1801. His attempt to prove that an arbitrary function in the interval minus pi pi can be expressed under certain conditions in a trigonometric series of the form a0 by 2 plus summation n equal to 1 to infinity n cos nx plus bn sin nx. This special type of series is known as Fourier series. Fourier series provides a powerful technique for solving periodic problems, and it is also used in theory of conduction of heat, electric and mechanical vibrations, propagation of electromagnetic waves, optics, etc. Fourier was the first person to initiate an elaborate study of trigonometric series, and afterwards Dirichlet, Parseval, Bessel and many others made major contributions in this field. Before we entering into the discussion of Fourier series, it is essential to study the behavior of periodic functions, piecewise continuous functions and some properties related to them. So let's start. So next we come to our first point, that is periodic function. So what is a periodic function? Suppose fx be a given function. Now fx is called a periodic function if this function is defined throughout its domain and for some positive constant p, if f of x plus p equal to fx, this holds. In that case we can say this function is a periodic function. So again I repeat, a function fx is called a periodic function if it is defined everywhere in its domain and for some positive constant p, if f of x plus p equal to fx, this holds. Now this positive constant p is called the period of fx. Okay, so remember that period never be 0. Period is always a positive real number. Okay, so if a periodic function f has a smallest period p, then this is called the fundamental period of fx. Suppose a function has periods many number of periods, and the smallest one is called the fundamental period of fx. Say for example, I am drawing a graph of a function. Just roughly drawing this: 0, pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi and so on. So basically this is the graph of sine function. Now we can see that this interval 0 to pi, the length of this interval is 2 pi, and if we consider this part of the graph in between this interval, that is this part, repeatedly occurs throughout the real line, maintaining this gap 2 pi, that is c. Again this part, if we extend this 6 pi, that is this is 2 pi length. Next this is also 2 pi length. So see that this part repeatedly occurs throughout the real line, that is sine x plus 2 pi. All of us we know this result, that is this is equal to sine x. So here the period of sine function is 2 pi. Again we can say that sine of x plus 4 pi, this is also sine x. See, if we consider this interval, then the length of this interval is 4 pi, and this part of the graph repeatedly occurs throughout the real line, maintaining this 4 pi length. So in that case we can say that sine function is a periodic function with period 2 pi, 4 pi, 6 pi and so on. So sin x is periodic with period p equal to 2 pi, 4 pi, 6 pi and so on. That is, we can write that period p equal to 2k pi, where k is a positive integer, or you can say that k is a natural number. As well as cos function is also a periodic function. And notice that among all these values of period, 2 pi is the smallest one. So 2 pi will be called as fundamental period. So 2 pi will be called as fundamental period of fx. Here fx is sin x. Now next we come to the point that suppose you are given a function fx which is defined as fx equal to x, where x belongs to 0, 1. Right. Next, now we draw the graph of this function. This is 0, this is 1. So this is fx equal to x in this domain. Now this function is not a periodic function. So my question is, can we make this function as a periodic function? And the answer is yes. How to make this function a periodic function? Just we have to calculate the length of this interval. See, here the interval is 0, 1. So length of the interval is 1. How to calculate? Suppose this is our given interval. Then length of interval, this is equal to mod of b minus a. In this way we can calculate the length of the interval. So here the length of the interval is 1, that is this length is 1. Now if we repeat the graph of this part in all the remaining real line, maintaining this gap, that is, just we have to extend this graph throughout the real line by repeating this part, just maintaining this gap. This is 2, this is 3, so again I repeat this part. So in this way we can extend this fx equal to x throughout the real line, and in this way we can make this function a periodic function. Right. So if our given function is not a periodic function, then just we have to calculate the length of the interval, and then we just repeat this part again and again, maintaining this length of the interval. So in this way we can extend the function throughout the real line, and we can make it a periodic function easily. So next we come to even and odd function. Now in case of even function, our definition is f of minus x equal to fx, and in case of odd function, that is f of minus x equal to minus of fx. So graphically, for even function, suppose this is the graph of the function, right? And this is a point in the domain of this function, and this is the corresponding minus x. This is x, this is minus x, and the corresponding function value, this is fx and this is f of minus x. So see, both the value is same and both have same sign. So this is an even function. Similarly, consider this parabola y equal to x square or fx equal to x square. Then this is x, this is minus x, this is the corresponding function value fx, this is f of minus x. Then see, both the function value same, and in this case f of minus x equal to fx, this hold. So both these functions are even function, and in case of odd function, what happens? F of minus x equal to fx, that is, both the function value f of minus x and fx, both the function value have same in magnitude but opposite in sign. So if we draw the graph in this way and consider this is x point, this is minus x point, this is the corresponding function value fx, and this is the corresponding function value f of minus x. Then see, both the value are same, but that is, both the value are same in magnitude but opposite in sign, direction changed. So here f of minus x equal to minus of fx. So this function is odd function. So this is the graphical representation of even and odd function. Okay. Next. So next we come to the properties of even and odd function. So properties. Number one property is product of two even function that is equal to an even function. Just check. Suppose f and g, let f and g are even functions. Then we have to prove that the product of these two functions, that is to prove f dot g is even. By definition, we have to prove that f dot g minus x, that is equal to f dot g x. Right? See the definition. For even f of minus x equal to fx, and here the function is fg. This is the total function, so fg minus x equal to fgx. Now so f dot g minus x, this is equal to f of g minus x, that is equal to f of this is f of minus x and g of minus x, f of minus x, g of minus x, and since fx is an even function, so f of minus x equal to fx and g of minus x equal to gx. So we get f dot g x. So f dot g is even function. Proved. Next, our second property is product of two odd function. This is an even function. So you can check it that if f and g are two functions, suppose f and g are two odd functions, this is checking, okay, are two odd functions, Then we have to prove that f dot g is even. That is f dot g of minus x. This is equal to f of minus x, g of minus x. This is equal to, now see, f is odd function. So f of minus x equal to minus of fx, and g is odd function. So g of minus x equal to minus of gx. So we get fx gx, minus minus plus. So this is equal to f dot gx. So we get fg minus x equal to fgx. So this is the second property. Now our third property is product of an even function and an odd function equal to odd function. Okay. So this is your homework. You can check it in this similar way. Next, we come to the integrals of even and odd function. So our next point is integrals of even and odd functions. So consider this integration minus L to L fx dx. Then we can write this is equal to minus L to 0 fx dx plus 0 to L fx dx. Just splitting up the two ranges, minus L to 0 and 0 to L, and then just pick this minus part, that is now minus L to 0 fx dx. This is equal to, now we put x equal to minus z, then dx equal to minus dz, and we write, okay, and again for x and z, x is minus L to 0. So when x is minus L, z is L, and when x is 0, z is 0. So this is equal to L to 0 fx means f of minus z, and dx means dz, and this is minus, okay, this is minus sign. So we get 0 to L f of minus z dz. Now just changing the variable f of minus x dx. So see, we don't put the value of z in this line, just change the variable. As we know that integration of x dx, this is equal to integration of y dy, both are same, just change the variable. So in this case, both the value of this integration are same, just we change this variable. In the place of z, we write x. Now if we numbering it as 1, then we get from 1, so from 1 we get, this is equal to 0 to L f of minus x dx plus this part 0 to L fx dx. Okay, this is equal to integration 0 to L fx plus f of minus x dx. I go to the next page, that is integration 0 to L fx plus f of minus x dx. Now direct consequence, that is, if f is even function. So if f is even, then we know that f of minus x equal to fx. So fx plus fx, that is 2fx. So twice 0 to L fx dx. And if f is odd, in this case f of minus x equal to minus fx. So fx minus fx cancel out and we get 0. So we get that this integration minus L to L fx dx, this has a direct value. If f is even, then the value of this integration is twice of 0 to L fx dx, and if f is odd, in that case the value is 0. This is very useful result and often we use it in our problems. So next we come to the point piecewise continuous. Piecewise continuous. So suppose fx be our given function. Now fx is called piecewise continuous on an interval. Suppose fx is defined in this interval ab. Now fx is called piecewise continuous on this interval ab if there exists a partition of ab into open subintervals. In each subintervals the function is continuous, that is, this function is called piecewise continuous on the interval if the interval can be broken into a finite number of subintervals on which the function is continuous on each subinterval. So see, if this is A, this is B, we break this total interval into a finite number of subintervals, and if the function is continuous on each of these subintervals, then we can say that this function is piecewise continuous. Suppose so in each of these subinterval this function is continuous. So in that case this function is called piecewise continuous function. Now example, suppose fx is defined in this way, fx equal to 1 for 0 less than x less than pi, and fx equal to minus 1 for 0 for minus pi less than x less than 0 less than equal to 0. Then the graph of this function is, suppose this is pi, this is minus pi, and from 0 to pi function value is 1, this is 1, and from minus pi to 0 function value is minus 1. So this is the function. This function is piecewise continuous, that is, this function is continuous in these two subintervals 0 to pi and minus pi to 0, and it is discontinuous at the point 0, that is, roughly speaking, at this point 0 the function has a jump discontinuity. Okay, so next we come to the point relative maxima and relative minima. So relative maxima and relative minima. First of all, let f maps from AB to R be a function, and f is continuous on AB. Okay. Now taking C an interior point of this AB, that is C is a point in between this interval. F is differentiable on AC and CB. Let delta greater than 0. Then number 1, if f dash x greater equal to 0 for all c minus delta less than x less than c, and f dash x greater equal to less than equal to 0 for all x belongs to c, or I am writing in this way, c less than x less than c plus delta. In that case, we can write f has a relative maxima at c. So see that f is a continuous function on AB. F maps from AB to R be a function, and f is continuous on AB. C is an interior point of this interval. F is differentiable on AC and CB, and delta greater than 0, and this hold. Now we explaining it graphically. See the graph. Okay, I'm writing here. Okay, I'm drawing the graph in this page. So suppose this is our function. This is A, this is B. This is the domain, and C is the interior point of this domain. Now we draw tangent line this, and again we draw another tangent line at that point. So see, the left side c minus delta. What is delta? Delta is a positive number, that is delta is a length, nothing but delta is a length. So we just move left side from C of some positive delta length. Suppose the value of delta is 1, then this is C minus 1 length, so this is C minus delta. So at this left hand side we draw this tangent. Why we are drawing this tangent line? See, f dash x greater equal to 0 for all c minus delta less than x less than c. Now f dash x, this represents the gradient or slope of tangent. So we draw tangent line in the left hand side of C, and we can see that the gradient or the slope of the tangent line is positive. So in the left side f dash x, this is greater than 0, or you can write greater equal to 0. Now again see this point, f dash x less than equal to 0 in the right hand side, c less than x less than c plus delta. So consider any point in the right hand side, suppose this is c plus delta. So in the right hand side, consider at any point x, at that point, suppose this is the tangent, and we check the value of f dash x, that is the tangent, slope of tangent, that is negative. So this is less than equal to 0. So in that case we can say that at the point C the function has a maximum value. So if the left hand side of the point C, AB is the domain of the function, C is the interior point of this domain, F is differentiable in between this AC and BC, AC and CB, this part, and consider this C minus delta less than x less than C, this part, that is in the left hand side of C. At any point of this left hand side we draw the tangent of the graph. Then at any point of the left hand side we find the value of slope of tangent, that is positive. Again we check the right hand side part, that is in the right hand side C less than x less than C plus delta, that is in this right hand side at any point x we draw the tangent line this, and we calculate the slope of tangent, that is less than equal to 0. So in this case we can say that at the point C the function has a maximum value, and the maximum value is f dash c. See, in this picture AB is the domain of the function, C is the interior point of this domain. The function is continuous over all this AB interval. Suppose this is the function. Now consider this left hand side C minus delta C, this part. At any point of this left hand side we draw the tangent line, and the slope of the tangent line is positive. Similarly in the right hand side at any point in this part C to C plus delta, in this interval at any point we draw the tangent line, and we see that the slope of tangent is less than equal to 0, negative. So in that case we can say that at the point C we can get the maximum value of f, that is at the point C f has a relative maxima. Similarly, if f dash x less than equal to 0 in the left hand side and f dash x greater equal to 0 in the right hand side, in that case we can say that the function f has minimum value at the point C. So for just I am drawing the figure, taking this is A, this is B, this is C, then draw the tangent line, this, and this is also the tangent line. So suppose this is C minus delta, this is C plus delta, this is f dash x. So in the left hand side the slope of tangent is less than equal to 0, in the right hand side the slope of tangent is greater equal to 0. So in that case we can say that the function f has a minimum value at the point C. Next we come to Dirichlet's condition. So a function fx is said to satisfy Dirichlet's condition in the interval minus LL, where L is a non-zero real number if the following condition holds, that is, if f is periodic, number 2, f is piecewise continuous, number 3, f has a finite number of relative maxima and relative minima. In the interval minus LL. So the function fx is said to satisfy Dirichlet's condition in the interval minus LL, where L is a non-zero real number if f is periodic, piecewise continuous and has a finite number of relative maxima and minima in this interval. So next we come to the point Fourier series representation. So let a function fx be periodic with period 12. So suppose fx be a periodic function with period 12, that is f of x plus 12 equal to fx, and satisfy Dirichlet's condition in the interval minus LL. Then fx has a Fourier series representation for every x in the form a0 by 2 plus summation n equal to 1 to infinity n cos n pi x by L plus bn sin n pi x by L, that is fx equal to this. So see, here fx is a periodic function with period 12, that is f of x plus 12 equal to fx, and fx satisfies Dirichlet's condition in this interval. Then fx has a Fourier series representation for every x in the form fx equal to a0 by 2 plus summation n equal to 1 to infinity n cos n pi x by L plus bn sin n pi x by L. Listen, we write fx equal to this equal sign as because fx satisfies Dirichlet's condition and fx is continuous in the domain, that is piecewise continuous is included also in this Dirichlet's condition. So if this function fx is not, if this function does not satisfy the Dirichlet condition, then we can't write this equal sign. In that case, we write equivalent sign, that is, if fx does not satisfy Dirichlet's condition, then we have to write fx equivalent to this a0 by 2 plus summation and so on. Or we can write the Fourier series representation of the function fx is of the form just this. Don't write this fx equal to term. if we write this fx equal to term, then before writing this we have to check that this function satisfies Dirichlet's condition in the given domain. Okay, next there are the values of n and bn, that is n equal to 1 by L integration minus L to L ft cos n pi t by L dt, where n equal to 0, 1, 2, dot dot dot, that is so on. Give 3 dots, only 3 dots. 3 dots means so on, not give so many dots. And bn equal to 1 by L integration minus L to L ft sin n pi t by L dt, where n equal to 1, 2 and so on. So here we write n equal to 0 and cos 0 equal to 1. So we get the value a0, and the value of a0 will be 1 by L integration minus L to L ft, this is 1 dt. This is the value of a0. So we get these two formulas. This is 2, this is 3. Now here this n and bn, these are called Fourier coefficients. And the equations 2 and 3 are called Euler-Fourier formulas or Euler formulas for Fourier coefficient. So see, Fourier series representation fx must be periodic function with period 12, where what is period? This length of this interval. Length of this interval is 12. L minus minus 12, that is L plus 12, that is L plus L, that is 12. And if it satisfies Dirichlet's condition, in that case we get this representation. Here n is this, bn is this. N, bn are called Fourier coefficient, and these two formulas are called Euler-Fourier formula or Euler formula for Fourier coefficients. Okay, so the basic is completed here. In our next upcoming video, we shall discuss about some problems related to Fourier series. Keep watching. Thanks to all of you.